Young scholars. So let's give this a go. Right here, we're looking at just a little document that I created. Took me about 2 minutes, copied and pasted in my prompt, identified which of the three themes of the novel I thought we were dealing with here. This one, write an argumentative essay in which you evaluate whether or not Christopher's father was justified in lying. Pretty clearly dealt with the theme of lying and maybe a little bit of truth in there also. So, first thing, you've got to figure out what is this prompt actually asking you to do. One way to do that is to do what I call a little do what chart, where we identify verbs from the prompt and then what those verbs are asking us to do. So if we read through, this prompt has kind of a long intro, a little bit of context here. But the first kind of major verb we come to is write. And so we'll just put that in there. And then write, what does it ask us to write? It asks us to write an argumentative essay in which we evaluate. So that's another verb. So we're going to write an argumentative essay. We'll plug that in right there. Then we are going to evaluate. That's our second verb right there. Uh, whether or not Chris's father was justified in lying to his son. Was Ed justified? Oh, and I don't like that that's underlined. So let's get rid of that real quick just to make it look nice. And then we'll go to our next verb here. Consider. All right. Consider. What are we going to consider there? Erickson's criticism of white lies. That's from our article at the beginning of the unit, so you'll have to kind of revisit that. And then I think we have one more verb here, and establish. That is a verb also. So we are going to establish. What are we going to establish? Our own ethical criteria for making this judgment. So as you can see, even this fairly simple, and then these from down here, it tells us to consider these questions. We will think about those. And then we do have another verb here. So pardon me, which is support. And then essentially it's just asking us to use some evidence. So we'll put that in there. You know what? I honestly, I think I'd like this a little better if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. So really, this prompt is asking us to do quite a few things to write an argumentative essay in which we evaluate whether Chris's dad was justified in his lie, to consider the criticism of white lies, to establish our own ethical criteria, and of course, to support our position with evidence from the novel. Just off the bat, obviously, we're going to write an argumentative essay, but I'm kind of looking at where in the essay I could do these things. Evaluate whether he was justified. That to me is going to come in our body paragraphs here. Evaluate whether Ed was justified. And I think kind of discuss lying in general. Because even though we're writing about Ed and Chris here, I want to address the theme, the big theme of lying. And kind of that big question is number 4, can I establish my own ethical criteria? Like, to me, is lying okay? And if so, when is lying okay? That's kind of the big question, the big theme that we're addressing here. But as we know, in our intro, we need to do kind of 3 main things. We need to introduce the novel. Oh, actually, let's go back. Technically 4. We need to hook our readers. We need to introduce the novel, its main idea or plot in this case, and author and key theme that we will be discussing. And then finally, we need to give a thesis that responds to the prompt. And you should have written a few of those already. I'm not going to worry about my hook right now. We're going to do that later. Introducing the novel, its main idea, plot, author, that's easy. Oh, look at me forgetting things. We need to have context or background info. And so I think that's going to be a good place to, number one, discuss Eric's criticism of white lies. So I'm going to introduce the topic of lying. I should say topic or theme of lying. We'll discuss Erickson's criticism of white lies. And we could, I don't really, the order of those things doesn't matter to me, but that gives me some good context background info to discuss here. And then, of course, we'll give our thesis. In our body paragraphs, we're going to make some claims to evaluate whether Ed was justified. And I tend to think more general claims will be effective. And then we will use specific examples from the novel to support my claim. So now I'm going to have to do some thinking here about body paragraphs. And I'll do that in just a moment, but I always like to clean stuff up a little bit. But also, you'll notice here, I've given kind of a place to just get some of my thoughts down. First thought, my gut says that Ed's lie was not justified because it was risky and led to much confusion, sadness. Other lies, like whether or not they are justified, lying is just a part of human life. Like, say, cannot be avoided. Let's see, lies that harm people are never okay. Lies to protect people. Now, I got to do a little thinking here. Lies to protect people might be okay, but I will need to define this further. Like, if I think lies are okay, like when are they okay? Ultimately, I'd like to kind of come to a little conclusion there, but it's not popping to me like into my brain right off the bat. So what I might do is kind of use my writing to figure out my answer to that question. So we're going to write an argumentative essay. We're going to evaluate whether or not Ed was justified or lying in general. We're going to consider the criticism of white lies. We got that right here. I think it'll fit nicely into kind of just a general discussion here in the background info, actually, in my intro. Going to discuss lying, going to discuss the criticism. And in the body paragraphs, in my conclusion, perhaps, I think the conclusion would be this might be a great place to establish my own thoughts about when lying is justified. I may come to a definitive conclusion but I may not. It may leave it open-ended. So really all we need to do here is kind of figure out our claims for the body paragraph. My first claim is going to be about, and I'm just taking this from ideas, like lies that harm or that could harm people are never okay. So I think my first claim is going to be when a lie can be harm. When a lie. See, I am just kind of working to figure this out here, but when a lie has potential to harm, not justified. Obviously, Ed's lie to Chris had great potential for harm. So I'm going to pull some evidence there. Maybe use a little personal example that I'll have to brainstorm a little bit there. Another body paragraph might be, yeah, so just looking up here. And I might just discuss the year, like lies to protect people might be justified. And then I'm going to have to brainstorm some evidence here. Maybe some examples of smaller lies from the text that are more easily justifiable. Thinking of like Chris's lies about continuing his investigation, lies from my life, and these are possible evidence that I feel might be useful. Yeah, so just kind of brainstorming here some examples of lies that I think might be okay. So what I'm really going to do, and I'm going to try and wrap this up, is I'm going to have kind of one paragraph when I think that lies are not justified, another body paragraph about when lies are justified. So I'm going to kind of try and define these things using evidence from the text, evidence from my own life. And then I think for me, my counter argument is pretty logical. The counter argument that people might say is that many people might say that lying is never justifiable. And I'd have to address these people and include a rebuttal. So just a real quick, I figured out what the prompt wants me to do. Used this little do what chart. Like you don't have to do this. And then I've kind of let, as I was structuring out my essay, I've kind of let the content, like my ideas, define my structure. So I'm going to have a pretty developed intro here. This might take 2 paragraphs. I might have to hook, introduce. My context and background might be pretty thorough. I'm going to end up with 3 body paragraphs, one about when lies are justified, one about when they are not justified, a counter argument, and then a conclusion. This is going to be, I'm a big fan of significance in the conclusion, kind of taking this idea, making it bigger. So I'm going to include a definitive answer to the prompt, like tell why Ed Boon's lie to Chris is not justified. And then I'm going to try and make it a little bigger. This is a great place to kind of establish my own thoughts about when lying is justified. So, taking kind of a writing that's about a specific book, a specific lie, and attempting to make that bigger, to generalize and make some commentary or explain some commentary on the theme of lying. Like, it's an important theme in every person's life. Like, everyone is familiar with lying, and here we're just doing a little bit more in depth about like when is lying okay, when is it not. I hope this makes sense, and thanks for listening.